This may be a little bit different than the other focus presentations you went to because it's going to involve you doing something. Clearly, we gave you a piece of paper and some colored pencils, so you might have picked up on that already. But just as a means of introduction, my name is Tabone. This is Chad Melton, and we are your career advisors here at Spring River University. This summer, we started going through a training with Catherine Brooks based on her book, You Majored in What? And so it explores the new way of thinking about career. You know, she talks about how that linear idea of if we get this education, it means we'll get this job, which means we'll get this promotion, blah, 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 blah. And she talks about how the world in which we live does not work in that way. That's actually the early 1900s way of thinking. That's a lot of time in between of how the world works and what kind of world we're living in today. And so she connects chaos theory, which is why we thought this would fit in well with this year's focus theme, into career management and planning. So we are doing an exercise today called Wander Wisely, where we're going to ask you questions, and you guys are going to think about your experiences in life, where you are right now. This is really just a snapshot, so I want you to release the expectation of yourself to remember everything you've ever done. Release the expectation that your piece of paper is going to look orderly. Anyone like order and organizing things? Okay, please release that expectation of yourself because it's meant to be messy, all right? So there's no way to do this correctly, but we are going to guide you through it. So what we're going to do, this is an example used by the book, and we're going to return to Bill in a moment. But Bill put his name in the middle of his paper. So if you would want to do that and put a box around your name. So write your name, and actually stop. I'm going to have you use a pen to do this part, and then we're going to add color later. So I apologize. We're going to start with a pen or just something that's not in the Crayola box. You're going to write your name and put a square around it. Next, Bill thought about the questions Chad is going to talk about, and he put those all over the place. You know, so notice that there's no real order. He didn't really categorize things. You know, whitewater rafting is next to creative writing, so don't worry about having to put things next to each other that you think would go next to each other. Just as Chad is reading the questions, just write things down and make them into bubbles. So write down something that's very brief, and then you're going to do the bubble circle around it. So, Chad, if you wouldn't mind.
Anna, is this in pen? I'm sorry.
This is also in pen.
Okay.
Yep, I will tell you when to use color. It's okay. But thank you.
So I'm going to read through a few ideas, and then at the end of that I'll put up a slide that gives you kind of some prompts that you can return to if you need that for a visual. But as I'm starting to read through, just start kind of thinking and writing as we do this, okay? So initially, let's start thinking about experiences. So think of any kind of significant experience from your youth or an event that comes to mind. Maybe a unique job that you had. You can start writing whenever things start coming to your mind. Maybe an unusual class or one you really liked. Something that was maybe connected to a summer you can remember. Maybe an activity or an event that you're most proud of. A hobby that you invest a good deal of time in. Awards or honors. Valuable lessons that come to mind. certain kind of knowledge that you rely on consistently? Times when you really felt successful? I'd also like you to think of kind of objects that you enjoy using. That could be some sort of technical device, a computer, could be a musical instrument, maybe books for journaling or just for enjoyment. Maybe you like being outside using binoculars or using equipment for sports. Scientific devices like telescopes or microscopes. Just things you enjoy using and feel fairly confident at. Maybe you're artistic and use a certain tool for that, paintbrushes or some sort of software. And then as you think of events, maybe a time when you were tutoring someone or doing a fun craft around the holidays or cooking, acting. Maybe running for a school office position or for election. Some sort of creative project. Maybe something about your family of heritage or culture that stands out to you. Some adventures or risks that you've taken. Volunteer activities that you really enjoy. Or vacations that come to mind that really stand out. So I'm going to put up this final slide and let you just spend a little time reflecting on some of these ideas. During this time, if there are questions you have, just raise your hand and one Anna or I will come check in with you. Definitely allow these just to be springboards. Don't get too caught up in this. You can think of other things as they come to your mind.
this is really just a snapshot of where you are in time, where you are right now, what came to mind today. So we aren't going to worry about trying to capture everything, but if there is something that pops into your brain, feel the freedom to grab your pen and write it out and add it as we go along. But so if you haven't already, go ahead and with your pen give some definition and circle those items so that they're like individual bubbles all around your paper. So like Bill did, he wrote biology class was meaningful to him, so he circled it. So the thing that we are going to do next, do you mind looking back to the question? We are going to think about how these items are related to one another. So for those of us that like some order, to this chaos, we're going to try and think about categories. So if you take a look and see how are they related, and pull out 5 colors. So each color is going to represent a category. And if we switch to the next slide, we're going to use Bill's as an example. So Bill looked over his map and he noticed, writing is a category for me because I enjoyed a creative writing class. I did a lot of writing with my minor in history, my psychology, my finance, and I wrote a play in 4th grade. So writing is going to be one of my categories that's important to me. So he connected all of the writing in the same color. And Chad's going to we'll pass out a worksheet where we're going to keep track of all that. But so in each color, we want you to connect those points that are within that category and label it so that blue is writing. That's writing. Another category that Bill found was these 2 jobs he really disliked. So jobs I disliked became a category for him. Another one was risk-taking. So he put whitewater rafting, kayaking in red. That was a risk-taking one. Another category was teamwork. So he put playing baseball, president of a club, being a counselor, Boy Scouts. Those were all teamwork associated. And then another one would be discipline. He took piano lessons for 8 years, and playing baseball really called him to be a disciplined person. So notice too, playing baseball fit 2 categories. So don't feel like you need to just reserve one for one category. There might be one major bubble on your paper that gets a lot of those categories, and that's okay. So you're gonna, in each color is going to be a different category. Start connecting the ones that you think are the same, or hold something in that category. And we're going to pass out a worksheet to help you keep track of that. So you'll notice in the top of this worksheet, there's a 1 through 5 on the top, and you'll write each of your categories here. Chad's going to put up a list of possible categories. Maybe some of these things are hobbies you enjoy, jobs you've had, classes or, faith or church, family relationships, things that you like to do, traveling. So this is not the limited list. Your ideas of categories are much better, but here's some ideas if you need a bit of triggering to name it.
Would you advise us to draw out the relations first, or are you trying to create the categories?
It's a great question. It might merge,
Yeah.
like as you think about a category, even be a subcategory. We also limited you to 5. If you think of more, or if you can't think of 5, that's also fine. This is just getting you started. Identified some categories. You'll notice on this worksheet there's 2 reflection questions you can answer. Is there a pattern or connection within these categories? And then make a note if there's anything interesting or possibly significant you found. feel like they need more time. Anyone getting uncomfortable with how messy it looks? Good.
So if you are still working, feel free to keep thinking, but I do want you to kind of shift a little bit. So with that, at this point, I want you to focus back on your circles. So take your attention off of the connections you made with the categories that you were just thinking through. And I want you to think of 3 of your circles that you are most proud of. And take a different color, like one for, so 3 new colors, and circle those 3 items that you would feel the most successful at or the most proud of. And you're going to write those down on the bottom part of that front handout once you've identified those.
Say that again. Yeah, sorry.
So each of your circles I'm referring to as an item or a piece of information that you've identified. So I want you to pick the 3 that you're most proud of and circle them each in a separate color. Does anybody have their 3 picked out? Okay. So for that, for the first one you wrote down, try to communicate that if there was a skill or ability that you have currently that you feel like really made that successful or something that you felt proud of, like something that you currently have strength in that you would write down. That's what we refer to as the skill trait side. So you'll write that idea for each side of those 3 things. So pick out what you would describe as that trait or skill that you have that you feel most confident about, you feel a lot of strength and ability in.
For Bill, he was most proud of his creative writing class, and the skill that he thought helped him do that was he felt creative. So he circled creative writing, and his skill became creative. Does that make sense?
And then Mike, okay, go ahead.
Is there one skill for all 3 that we circled, or one
No,
skill for each?
no, one for each of these preferences, yeah. And then once you've wrote those things down, like the example, try to see if there are other items that fit that skill on your page and connect those with that same color that you chose for that item. So it's the 3 colors you chose for those 3 items, and then with that color, connect those skill sets together. do have a list of some examples if that helps you kind of think about this a little bit further. As you feel comfortable, if you wouldn't mind to pair up with somebody and just kind of talk them through what you're seeing. So if you're sitting kind of on your own, if you wouldn't mind to shift and get closer to somebody so you can kind of talk through the things that you're thinking about.
Were you going to talk to someone about this? Or? Yeah. Maybe my point. Would you like to review?
Yeah, just sit in and
You're welcome. You've enjoyed it.
yeah, I'm happy to discuss the session. Yeah, we can maybe
And then,
did she also?
Like I actually writing a book. I swear all you went.
My wrist got 2 weeks out of every year last year. That was sick, kind of like, this was sort of like, it's like a girl in the water or something like that. You know, where it does like something.
Years. It's like being back there.
It does feel
I went away 40 years, so school in college for December. I had a job for 2 weeks long and a life program. I was and later on I was in pain, so I said there's some
So as you're looking at this together, with the person you're talking with, if, as you're observing the other person's sheet, if there's things that they didn't mark in regards to a skill or a trait that you're curious about, be asking those questions to see if you can pull out a couple of more ideas with them. And if you do, feel free to make those notes on there. So take some time to do that as you're reflecting on the things you've already noticed, but also can notice for each other.
Compassion would have to be.
One thing I noticed is that I
Don't
love
get
this
me
awareness of what I enjoy fighting for.
a very long life story.
That was
Start having jobs, you know, places in America where I lived. Dog names there.
You like watching
Everywhere we had
videos
dogs and pets here.
Like, I'm looking at your thing, and it's like, oh, I got that. That was that.
Family.
My hands, you know,
What I realized here is that trying to make the motors work when it goes really tough. That when I broke the mixer, while I'm working with my hands there,
Oh, I read.
Wait, you're going on your
just made me shut that summer. So that's all working for my kids.
You're on there as
Working on my hands.
mentor or relationship
Running,
And
staying fast.
and then also just notice that it's just how he's
Any questions?
No, want to use it. Choose a child.
Everything is opportunity cost.
remote.
Do one thing, you're right.
Yeah.
Something else.
My freshman year, I had 1.2.
Consequences that you
But
know.
then we moved it to.
What I call the can't answer your choose.
I'm not
But these lines, they are related to
Emotional and cultural anger.
Like, it's kind of weird, though. It sounds like super broad, but
Preventative action.
with
But it was real joy.
I'll fill yours out.
Okay.
And
So I guess like.
And also, I remember
That's all right. I was oh, it's been something like this. It was an hour. The more than
So as you're ready, there are a couple more reflection questions underneath those themes. So
Oh, Lord.
take a moment if you're ready. If you knew you couldn't fail, which one of these themes would you keep pursuing in your life and in your future? So you moved your skills from the front to the back, and your partner has helped you identify a couple more. Maybe one of those seems intriguing to you, like, oh, that would be awesome to keep pursuing. Or maybe it's one that you know that you're good at. Think about that. If there's one that you know if you couldn't fail at it, which one would you keep pursuing? And then maybe there's something that's missing from your map that you know you want to be there or is there, but what theme would you create on your map if you could? Feel free to use this list as just like a brainstorm, but we'll take a couple minutes to reflect.
Anna, can you explain that second question again?
Yeah.
Like, just like a theme, like for like the whole thing, or like an additional thing?
Could be an additional theme.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not one of those 5 above it,
Okay.
but you know it should be there in your life, or you want it to be there, you want to cultivate it.
Mm-hmm.
These are your top 3 yet? These are your top 3. You've identified your top 2 as your second 2.
I did.
Yeah,
From the speaking English?
sure.
I think
Broken mixers. Working with my hands, I broke the mixers, making the dough for cookies. That in my cookie career. But I did was working with my hands. I thought that was a pain.
One of the things that Catherine Brooks refers to in the book is that this chaos theory was originally talked about in regards to predicting weather. And one of the things that they kind of grew to learn is that it became harder and harder to predict beyond, a few days. But there was enough evidence that could help them identify what the next few days would look like. So with that in mind, our careers are a lot like that. I mean, you get an unfair question at times about will you see yourself doing in 5 years or something like that, where you're trying to take all these different things that you're looking at and all these things you feel good at and interested in and trying to hone that into a certain moment in time in the next 5 years. But based off what you've reflected on today, do think about the next 6 months. Is there something that you are intrigued by that you've been thinking about in this exercise and you would say, I really want to invest some time in this and I want to reach out to either a mentor or someone who can help me think through that, or I know right now this is something I can do to strengthen myself in this or to take a few steps toward it. So take a few minutes and think about that and make some notes about that. Something you could refer back to your partner in 6 months and just say, I wanted to do this and this is what I've done in response to that desire that I have right now.
coming to the end of our time, we just want to talk about what you just did. So really what this exercise is doing is helping you remember who you are. It's a Mufasa moment, right? You know, the Lion King. So in those, identifying the things that really were important in your life, in those bubbles, those were moments that helped you become you. And as you connected those dots and created categories, you learned some of the things that maybe you're really good at, or what you really enjoy. And then, when you identified 3 things you're most proud of, you associated that with a skill that you learned, and that really became something that you've honed, and you will continue to. And so you've written down what you're good at. So what we've done is really taken this time to put something on paper, add some color to it, create a little bit of chaos. But at the end of it, I hope that you, when you look at this sheet, these 5 things on the front, these 5 things on the back, 3 that you identified, a couple that someone else saw in you, those are the things that are worth reflecting and worth pursuing about who you are, because it's based on what you've done, what you enjoy, what you're good at. So connecting it, like Chad said about chaos theory, there will be continued chaos that you encounter in your life as you move forward, making decisions about not just your career, but also, you know, for your family, where you're going to live. All of these decisions have lots of influences and lots of factors to consider when making decisions, especially about our careers. What Catherine was talking about in applying chaos theory is what we can do is, maybe we can't predict out in those 5 or 10 years, but we can predict, make closer predictions when we assess and know ourselves, when we know what we're good at, when we know what we really like. We can have a better idea of what decisions to make, what jobs we take based on what we know about who we are and what we've done and what we do. So this is just an exercise in doing that. And then also, we're kind of fighting that, we're going back to what I talked about, you know, in that early 1900s, if you get an accounting degree, you should be an accountant, you know, that kind of linear thinking, which is good, and there are very practical things about that. But what she talks about is, when we have that mindset, we are engaging a chaotic or like large decision on a single factor, when really we need to be making decisions based on a lot of these factors, all of these factors on your page, what you're good at, what you like. And sometimes, so when someone asks you that question, so what are you majoring in? What are you going to do with that? You know, the answer to that question is what they're wanting you to say, make a decision off of that one single factor. And what we want you to think about in your life is that life doesn't work that way. We can't make decisions and future decisions based off of that one single factor. It's a really important factor that you guys are here and studying something and engaging in one particular discipline. That is the way to go about learning deeply about something. But we also don't want you to feel trapped in my major determines my career, because you are more than just that, and your future is more than just the thing that you get on your transcript at the end of the day. So we'd love to open it up if you have any comments or questions. We have a couple more minutes, and then always know that Chad and I are here to meet with you as you are making decisions, whether it's about career or even just what you're going to do this summer. Earn some money so you can come back. You know, we love to talk about that. So thank you guys you were really engaging. But if anyone has any questions or thoughts to process after going through this exercise, we'd love to hear that too.
I found the questions that you asked were thought-provoking. I think so many times that we just go through life as human doings, and to step back and actually think about like what was meaningful to you, and then what you're most proud of. But I don't think that those are questions that we often ask one another and give ourselves time to ponder. So I appreciated those and the opportunity to think about them.
I think after like this whole seminar, it's really important to capitalize on applying whatever we just went through to real life scenarios. Because I feel like real life application is always maybe that final goal and the processes that we go through. And I think with a lot of stuff that can help me out later on.
Great.
What I appreciate about this is realizing some talents or skills that I maybe wasn't as aware of that were kind of latent in some of those accomplishments. So I can give myself a little more credit, or just really push myself more in that area, knowing that that's a skill that I should utilize more.
Yeah.
And then seeing that some of the other themes are some values that I want to incorporate more into my life, in my everyday life. So it's not just something that happened in the past, but how do I bring more of this into the stuff I'm doing right now, right where I'm at? Not just, change and trying to get more into that arena. So that was interesting to think through.
I like this exercise because just maybe reflect on the fact that everything's not black and white. Like skill sets apply to different areas in my life, and like I can use a skill set that I like, that I see in myself. Like even if something's not like a super realistic goal, like we have like if you knew you couldn't fail, but like in the real world there is like a chance to fail. So like it's good to like recognize that like this is the path I would take, and I can still apply that to a career that I can that maybe is a little bit more stable, I guess, because that's what a lot of people like are afraid of. I don't want to take this career path because I'm scared that I'll fail. It's good to see like the other choices that can still like apply our skill sets that we want to see in ourselves.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Well, thank you guys. Know that our office is down across from Melton Health and Wellness, the ping pong tables. We're happy to meet with you to discuss this further, or if you have any other questions or needs as well. Thank you.
Yeah.